Well, yeah, hello, good evening, good afternoon, whatever. Welcome again to Talking Pictures, your great weekly episode where we talk about movies and TV and a whole load of other stuff. Thanks for joining me and my co-host, David. My name is Brian, by the way. David, how are you?
I'm good, Brian. How are you today?
Good. I'm an uncle.
Oh, congratulations. This is the first episode now where your sister's had her baby and you're officially Uncle Raj.
Yay, 100%. Yeah, it's nice, it's nice. Yeah, let the next gen start to take a hold. Anyway, before we get into this week's episode, I'm going to throw in a little trailer of the week, if you don't mind.
Yeah, please.
Did you watch Ted from Seth MacFarlane?
I've seen the films. I haven't seen the trailer. Is there a new one?
There is a teaser for a TV show, a prequel TV show. So
Okay.
the teaser is just a little like announcement where Ted in the mid-90s is writing a letter to future Ted, and we cut to future Ted answering the questions. You know, do you have your own TV show streaming on the best streaming network, and, you know, answering some sort of like Seth MacFarlane types of humour. That was just a little gag, and I'm sure as Seth MacFarlane humour goes along with Family Guy, it'll be like joke after joke, as he did establish in the Ted movies. It'll be in the TV show, and, you know, it's going to be a young John with Ted, who still sounds like Ted from the movies, so it's not going to be like, you know, a young the I love you type of squeaky teddy bear voice.
Yeah.
And let's see if this goes to some success. I'm interested. I'm not, you know, eagerly anticipating it or, you know, to analyze it. I'm just sure, yeah, nice. I almost would have preferred a third Ted movie, but you know, I'm not gonna lose sleep over it.
Yeah, the fact that this is a prequel series, that kind of makes sense in that you would want to see, like, if we were to get a third Ted movie, I'd want to see Mark Wahlberg there, because they're kind of I would link the two together. Like Mark Wahlberg is with Ted. So just seeing a young version, I suppose, of that character, that makes perfect sense. That sounds like you kind of know exactly what you're getting into there. Nothing too high stakes, but just a bit of like that, you know, Family Guy, bit of crude humor.
Yeah.
With a teddy bear.
Let's see in due time. It will be coming out in the first or second week of January 2024. Don't know how the fuck we're gonna watch it in Ireland, but we'll see.
What streaming network is on?
Peacock. Universal's.
Peacock. Okay. Yeah, no, we don't have that yet. So
And enough of that crack. Let's move on to the discussion we're going to have today. Another 3-hour epic blockbuster about a dictator making moves in his industry. Ridley Scott is some man for being very demanding. That was a joke on Ridley Scott being a dictator, but no, it's Napoleon, or Napoleon, I think it's pronounced properly. But sure, when French people sound like English and American, not speaking the French accent, let alone not even speaking French, I'm not going to fault myself for mispronouncing his name. So I saw Napoleon a couple of days ago now, and you saw it there recently. I was disappointed by it.
yeah, I can understand, I think, why. I think that we're maybe on two different ends of the spectrum. I enjoyed it. I didn't love it. I quite enjoyed it. I enjoyed myself with it. But I think that comes down to Ridley Scott, I think, as a filmmaker, doesn't it? He's very polarizing, and like you either do really love his movies or you really don't like them. And I think that he has so many movies that will swing back and forth, like, this is great, this is class. Like The Last Duel was class, and then House of Gucci, that was okay, and then Napoleon, class, and then, you know, the upcoming Gladiator 2, which we really, really hope is class. So, but that could very much switch for a lot of people. They could have the complete opposite there, where The Last Duel, shit, House of Gucci, class, this, shit, you know?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people talk negatively about The Last Duel, like, you know, split the difference of likes and dislikes. Same with House of Gucci. People like the movie, and on one side and the other side they're laughing at Jared Leto acting like a clown, and it's not the Joker. So it just really depends on what people think. It feels like a lot of young people, or people who are not veterans, or I guess, to be blunt, old, are not a huge fan of Ridley Scott movies unless it's something like The Martian. But when it comes to veterans like Scorsese, Spielberg, maybe Tarantino, Francis Ford Coppola, they're all raving about Ridley Scott as Sir Ridley Scott, master technician with the camera, master storyteller, a great introduction and contributor to the film industry, especially the British industry. That's why he's Sir Ridley Scott. But to call him a master storyteller, I agree. I do. I've liked a lot of his movies. Not loved, but liked a lot of his movies he's been releasing in the last couple of years. That includes The Last Duel and House of Gucci. And, of course, yes, The Martian. But I didn't think the story in Napoleon was good. And it's funny when I say that, because it is a 2.5 hour movie that is really a 4 hour movie. Because he shot 4 hours worth of footage to make the movie. Of course, he can't put that in cinemas, he said so himself. So he's cut out scenes and narratives that I guess he deemed not too necessary for cinema. And then when it gets released on streaming and Apple TV, he's going to release the whole 4 hours. So we watched a edited down version of Napoleon, and I can see why that maybe is where the problems I have come, because this, instead of feeling like a true tale narrative about Napoleon Bonaparte, it just felt like one of those titles on a YouTube video, top 10 bits Napoleon top 10 events in his life, and top 10 critical or pivotal moments in Napoleon Bonaparte's life, things like that. That's what this movie felt to me. And when I said best bits at first, but for the first hour and a half, there's hardly any battles, and I was bored. And the fact that I was bored and I'm looking for battles to entertain me, it's not generally how I perceive myself. But that's what I was looking for in the end, because looking at my phone, an hour and a half has passed by, and there's like, all right, what are we doing here? Come on! Like, it's just scene after scene after scene of him and Joséphine just bickering it out. There's at least a couple of scenes where the two of them open the scene, and they're like the same camera shot of them sitting on the couch dealing with another problem with not getting a child or cheating while he's away. And then there's arguing, and then I was just fed up, and I didn't think that the progress of him building to be emperor, it felt like it was just drop into this scene to establish this, and drop into this moment of the movie to carry out this scene. Now, let me say it, these scenes that are executed, they are very good scenes. Some of them are, entertainment, like the scene where he's being ridiculed and ambushed by the mob, and he runs out of the building, and that one shot slips down the stairs. You can see his almost fear of being almost killed, and then as the propagandist he is, to say they tried to kill me. They have knives and weapons, and now you have to kill them. And shall we vote? That scene, that was a good scene among many other good scenes, but in formation to tell the story that was not here, I did not think it worked.
Yeah, in a way, I'd compare it to, and bear with me on this, okay? I'd compare it to Oppenheimer, okay?
Yeah.
And in the same way that, like, Christopher Nolan wanted to tell the story of Robert Oppenheimer, and he had the 3 hours, and he wanted to put every single detail in that movie. He really wanted, like, I read up on Oppenheimer, I know about Oppenheimer, I want to have everything be important. And on the flip side of that, then we have Ridley Scott, who he did his research on Napoleon, but it's spread out over a much longer time frame. Whereas Oppenheimer takes place over the course of the war. You know, the main function of it, you know, being the creation of the atomic bomb, and that taking place over the course of maybe 3 years. Napoleon takes place over, 30-ish years?
Something like that.
So it felt like, while Nolan with Oppenheimer was, I want to get every detail in, Ridley Scott was like, okay, I want to get to this, and then I want to get to this, and then I want to get to this, and it just be like a highlight reel. Like you were saying there, a top 10 video on YouTube. It wanted to be like a highlight reel of Napoleon's achievements and his life and stuff like that. That's how I felt. And for me, to be honest, I don't know that much about Napoleon.
Neither do I.
The most I knew about Napoleon is the fact that night at Waterloo, Napoleon did surrender. The ABBA song, literally Waterloo. I knew that, okay, eventually we're probably going to end up in Waterloo. And to be honest, I knew he was a French general, and that was about it. I had no idea he became emperor. I thought he died at the Battle of Waterloo. I thought he surrendered and was like killed or whatever. So I had no idea about all this stuff. So having it kind of nearly be a highlight reel told over the space of 2.5 hours, I quite enjoyed it for that fact, because I felt like I got a wide breadth of Napoleon and his history. Now, a criticism I will have is I didn't feel like the progression of time was shown very well, because this could have all taken place over the course of 5 years.
Yeah. And
I never felt like I was seeing any kind of difference in anything.
Yeah, just because they put the year in text below what year it is, and maybe a little title of what this scene is, like the battle of this, or the onslaught of this, or the whatever of this. You're supposed to, okay, so it's been 3 years. Okay, it's been 5 years. Okay, it's been 1 year. Like, that's not enough. There's not a feeling, really. Like, you can, like, there was a bit where I didn't realize that one of the young women in the movie towards the end, oh, that's Joséphine's
was
daughter.
Joanna's daughter.
I didn't know that. I thought she was just a maid or a helper or a servant. I didn't realize who she was because she was a little girl at the start of the movie. But I bet somewhere in the missing hour and a half footage that is not in this movie but will be in the streaming version, those blanks that I'm complaining about that didn't make a movie, in my opinion, will be there. And then maybe it will make sense. I think it should, because if it doesn't, well then it's really not going to be that good of a movie, in my opinion. But I do get what you're saying, how, and you're agreeing with me, but I just struggle to follow it as a story. Like, I can't really come up with an example to compare Napoleon to in the same vein. But what I can compare Napoleon to is other 3 hour plus historical biopics about other well-known events, such as Oppenheimer or Killers of the Flower Moon, or maybe even Babylon, right? With those three movies I've just listed, and I'll throw John Wick Chapter 4 in there as well. With those movies, I felt I'm engaged in the story that they're telling, and I'm able to follow it. I'm not finding myself bored. I'm actually on board with what the story it is that they're trying to tell. Whereas here in this movie, it just felt very disjointed. And it felt a bit weird as well. And I hear a lot of people are like laughing at this movie. It's like, this movie's funny when it's not really trying to be funny. It's not supposed to be funny. You know, the scene where she lifts up the skirt and he's like, you know, trying not to look down, but he does. I mean, I didn't think much of that, but that's just one example of people thinking that this is, it's indirectly funny. Similar way how The Martian won the Golden Globe for Best Comedy, and Ridley Scott did not like that. Did you see that? Because he didn't like that. So this movie could win a Golden Globe as comedy for all we know. It probably won't, but to name it as an example, Ridley Scott is going to explode like a volcano eruption, because he doesn't, this to him is like, this is like masterclass opera cinema, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
I think with all those movies that you named there, the kind of plus 3 hour ones, I think to kind of build on what you're saying there, I think with all of those, if I said describe describe any of those movies, you kind of describe it as, Oppenheimer, it's about the creation of the atomic bomb.
Yeah.
Babylon, it's about the early cinema industry in the 1920s Hollywood. And you're kind of nearly able to describe the plot. Whereas with Napoleon, you're like, what's Napoleon about? It's about the life of Napoleon. Like, there's no actual definitive plot. It's the story of this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And is that all a biopic needs to be? Like, because with some biopics, it's nearly told, some of them are the story of their life. You know, Ray, the story of Ray Charles's life. Is that all a biopic kind of really needs to be? Is it just telling the story of someone's life? Because there are stories like that, like, say, Ray, which is about Ray Charles. It just tells the story of his life. And then there's other biopics that are the story of a day in the life of, or a certain portion of someone's life. So those can very much be more plot driven, like, this is the story of when so and so did this, or is Napoleon just a biopic it's the story of Napoleon's life? Like, because interestingly enough, we're dropped in. It's not like it's we follow Napoleon from birth or a very young age. We're just dropped in, and he's already a general, isn't he? I don't know exactly his rank, but he's like leading men in the battle of.
He is in that position. I think we're dropped into the next phase of the progression of France, and it's like it's around this time Napoleon has started his rise to power, let's say. And
I felt like his rise to power, it never felt like his own idea. It just felt like he was being led constantly by everyone else, like putting ideas in his head, and he was just following it. Like, it felt like he never had any desire to be on the council, when it was reduced to 3 people, and then all of a sudden it's, you could be the emperor, and then he's laughing about it, and then all of a sudden then he's the emperor, and you're like, what? It didn't even seem like he wanted to be this at all. It just felt like he's being led along the way, and he's just able to back it all up, I guess.
Yeah, I can agree with it there. But then he does end up being to a point in his life where he's got a big ego, to say the least, in his achievements. But I guess maybe, and I do stand by the fact that this movie is missing a lot of beats, therefore it feels disjointed. And just to name another example, he's pledging alliance with this one guy in one scene. A scene later, he's talking to Joséphine via a letter he wrote to her that he's at war with him. So what happened there? I'm quite sure there is a scene that happened in between that, foul play, backstabbing, and because it's just done in passing.
It seems like any scene that didn't feature Napoleon or Joséphine was taken out, because in any other movie we would see that, because it was just like like that, where he says he's reading out the letter, or even a text at the bottom of the screen that Russia has betrayed me. They've increased taxation on France and let England through, no problem. Like, you would see kind of in any other movie a scene from the perspective of the Russian Tsar. Maybe this 4-hour cut that we're going to see will just feature more of the supporting cast, and we'll just get more of I suppose context for the scenes that we did see in the film version,
to back it up.
Yeah.
I agree with you there, and I think that is, and I can see why those scenes were taken out of it, because to put more focus on Napoleon, because I guess any scene with Napoleon, Ridley Scott deemed it necessity, if I pronounce that right, to be in the movie. But look, as you said yourself, Ridley Scott can be a hit and miss, and I think we both agree on The Last Duel and House of Gucci and The Martian and Gladiator and Blade Runner, I'd imagine. So let's hope that Gladiator 2 is going to be good.
Well, let's go into the flashbacks, and I'll sing a little bit of Ridley's praises, if Laura wouldn't mind playing that jingle for me.
Laura's not here today. It's up to me to press this button.
Oh, shit.
Yeah,
Brian, play that jingle for me.
Just give me a second. Got it.
Thank you, Brian. So we've got some flash facts, as we always do on this great podcast we have here. So, flash fact number 1.
I love this.
Did you know that this film? Did you know that this film was shot in 61 days? So Ridley Scott that this was remarkably fast for a film of this scale. He credits the speed of the shoot down to being prepared and not having ridiculous numbers of retakes.
Well, I did hear that. However, I went to a Q&A screening up in Belfast. Whoa. Yeah, up in Belfast. I went to a Q&A screening. I saw a mannequin with a Napoleon uniform, and the boots of the mannequin were the boots made to fit Joaquin Phoenix. Just
wow.
Yeah, I'm a pair of boots away from knowing Joaquin Phoenix.
6 degrees of separation.
Yeah. So the screening I went to, Mark Huffman, Northern Irish producer, done work on Alien Covenant, Game of Thrones, The House of Gucci, I believe, and The Last Duel. So he's worked with Ridley Scott a few times. He was talking about this in the fact that this movie was shot in 61 days, or I heard 62 at one point, and then I heard 63 at one point. But the fact that, I think what Mark Huffman said was 62 days, but in saying that, he said, Ridley Scott says that this movie was shot in 62 days, but in my opinion, it was a lot more days that we shot. And I think every day that passes, it would go from 62 to 61, and then the next day it would be 60 days it was shot, and then it would be 59 days that the movie was shot.
Okay.
And so I think what producer Mark is saying there, Ridley Scott came to shoot the most pivotal and physically and technologically and creatively crucially important shots and footage, and then the rest of the stuff that would have been shot that would not really require the godlike power of Ridley Scott was done by second unit directors and other unit directors, such as opening shots maybe, or handling shots of extras. I don't know. I'm only guessing, but that's how I deem it. So
even shots of Napoleon writing letters or stuff like that, anyone could shoot.
Is that worth Ridley Scott's time? Is he? Because he's not going to be near the camera. He's in a nice safe hut watching it through the monitor. He's an 80-year-old. He's an 80-something-year-old man. So they can't waffle him around everywhere. He can't be. He's not going to be so mobile.
Yeah. Flashback number 2. This film reunites Sir Ridley Scott and Joaquin Phoenix after working together in Gladiator, which was in the year 2000. So it's been 23 years since they last collaborated together.
Huh. And it's a bit fitting that he had Joaquin as the villain in Gladiator, and he has him here as the villain / hero of this movie. It's almost like having Russell Crowe come back to work with Ridley Scott on another big conglomerate movie. I guess he did in American Gangster, but that was co-shared with Denzel Washington, whereas I guess Gladiator could be co-shared with Joaquin Phoenix. This movie is Joaquin Phoenix.
Absolutely.
It's quite interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll see with the 4-hour cut, I think we'll see more of Joséphine as well. I think she said that, or he said that there's a lot more of her, and I think that you could nearly make the argument a couple of years from now, if we're talking about Napoleon, that it's Joaquin Phoenix sharing it with Vanessa Kirby, because I think she was slightly less. If I had described it, I would say probably 70-30, but if we get this 4-hour cut, we probably will see a more 50-50 kind of story.
You know what, David? Vanessa Kirby was not Ridley Scott's first choice for Joséphine.
No, I know this. It was Jodie Comer, wasn't it?
From The Last Duel.
Yeah.
And there you go for working with same actors. One movie to the next, he was gonna have Jodie Comer and Adam Driver from The Last Duel to House of Gucci. Adam Driver, so there you go. Just to name a few. But Jodie Comer had to drop out due to COVID scheduling conflicts. And like maybe Vanessa Kirby starring in the first 2 seasons of The Crown on Netflix as the Queen's sister. That
I didn't know she was in that. Okay.
Yeah, that gave prompt to maybe let's get her to play Joséphine. And you know what, Dave? I'll say this as well. I think Vanessa Kirby gave a better performance than Joaquin Phoenix in this.
Yeah, I could definitely see her up for an Oscar.
I can
with
see
this performance.
With the competition so far this year, and whatever's left to come, which is not much, I'd argue Vanessa Kirby has a higher chance of getting nominated for either lead or supporting actress for an Oscar over Joaquin Phoenix getting a nomination for lead Oscar nomination.
Yeah, I understand that. That's I'm thinking, yeah.
Either way, I think she has higher chances of getting a nomination, and she was something in this, and she was great. Joaquin Phoenix, yes, he's great. He's as great as Leonardo DiCaprio would be. He's as great as Denzel Washington would be. But Vanessa Kirby, she's that. Pay attention, I'm telling you.
And then final flashback. So this is more so about the actual history of some of the characters rather than the movie itself. But Joséphine is a direct descendant of 5 current royal families in Europe, including the monarchies of Sweden, Denmark, Norway and Belgium, and the Grand Duke of Luxembourg. She is often referred to as the Grandmother of Europe.
Huh, okay. Grandmother of Europe.
And I really, as the movie was going on, I really thought that the Tsar of Russia was going to marry Joséphine. I was like, wow, that would be such a fuck you to Napoleon. Like, that's the thing, is because I didn't know anything about it, I was like, that's a real possibility. Like, that Napoleon could come into Russia, essentially lose. He lost that. He went with 3 million men, came back with 40,000. Like, he lost that. And then for the Tsar to just rock up into France and pull your missus. I just thought that would be such a fuck you to Napoleon.
The French are always the victim of something. But that's interesting. I didn't realise Joséphine was held in such high regard of that. Whereas
maybe that's why she had such a focus in this movie, that it's not just Napoleon, it's the two of them.
It's like it focuses on the relationship between him and Joséphine. And what I was trying to say about Napoleon, him being compared to dictators such as Hitler and whatnot, because that's what Ridley Scott said himself, which is quite interesting to have him.
Like, he is described a lot of the time as a brute.
Yeah.
So but
you're not going to see a movie, a dramatized biopic about Adolf Hitler,
No, other than Downfall, but we probably won't be seeing a historical epic focusing on Hitler. And on that note, we'll put an end to the flashback section. Brian, would you mind playing us out of this one?
Oh, yes, yeah. Hold on a sec. Oh, God. Okay. Thanks, Brian.
So just one more thing that I wanted to kind of say about why I really enjoyed it, is because I think that having films like this, they are so few and far between. For a lot of the time, when if I go to the cinema, a lot of the time I want to see something that I couldn't possibly see in my own everyday life. And when else have you ever gotten really a chance to see something like this? Like, grand scale battles from arguably history's one of history's how do you describe them? Like, the
historically greatest figures in military combat.
Yeah, exactly. Like a master tactician, won numerous battles. You know, like we saw that clip at the end. Like he had 60 plus battles, like over 3 million dead, over the course of his life. Like, when do you get to see this kind of stuff? So being in the cinema and seeing this on the big screen and seeing revolutionary France and seeing a guillotine and these huge rooms and huge hallways occupied by people, that it just felt like I was there. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the whole that whole aspect of it felt incredible.
This would be the best medium to get sucked into looking at this world. And when you think, because when as far as movies come and go, or even television shows, the biopic about this, or the movie about this person in real life, this movie will, regardless of what it is, it will be known as the Napoleon movie, and that's what this is. And I will agree with everything that the camera does. Yeah, David, this, like I said, master cameraman Ridley Scott is, and he knows how to tell the cinematographer what he wants, and the execution of the battles. 11 cameras he used, and the battles he did, they were done in one live sequence, like an OB, as Mark Huffman said, and he just has the cameras doing their blocking and coordinating to capture everything that Ridley knows he wants to capture. So that's where Ridley Scott really excels. He knows how to direct action, especially when it comes to sword and horse type of action.
Yeah.
Especially.
Those battles are like that, like you said. The fact that they're choreographed out beforehand, and it's basically just kind of one big run, and we'll just film it all and we'll edit it together. But it's edited so well that I'm everything that I'm seeing, it all makes sense to me. I'm not just bombarded with images. It's edited well, and I'm following the action of what's going on. It's just easy to follow like that. And I think that there's only 3 battles in it, and I think all 3 are.
I think there's two
major
battles,
ones.
2 major battles, and maybe 1 or 2 smaller scale battles.
But the 2 major ones, the one at Waterloo, and then the one heavily featured in the trailer at the with the ice, both of those incredibly crafted well. And like you were saying there a little bit earlier with veterans, I don't know if it was the same for your screening. I walked in and there was actually a lot of older men in my screen, and like a lot of like guys that looked like they'd be granddads.
Yeah.
And I was like, are these guys here for like, that kind of they're history buffs, and this is the only chance that they would get to see something that they're interested in, Napoleon and history on the big screen. So is it maybe a movie for them? Does Ridley Scott make movies for him and his friends? And it just so happens to be these epic historical features.
I don't think Ridley Scott has friends. He has whatever the fuck he wants. That's what I think. Ridley Scott does whatever the hell he wants. It's just that he's not as high regard as Spielberg or Scorsese would be when it comes to that, because it feels like those guys, for just to name as examples, they can do whatever they want. Those guys can do whatever they want, and sorry, just repeat myself. Those guys can do whatever they want, and I think that Ridley Scott himself has a big ego in what he does. He doesn't care what anyone else thinks, and when he has a problem with maybe how a movie is being perceived, he'll blame it on millennials, or he'll not give a shit about what other people thinks. He compared himself recently to Scorsese, that Ridley Scott directed 3 movies and a short film in the years between the 2 movies Scorsese directed, maybe it was The Irishman, and then Killers of the Flower Moon. Ridley Scott directed 3 full movies and a short film as well, just to be exact. And I see what Ridley Scott is saying, that I've delivered out all this content, and I'm a hard man at work, and yes, he is, no doubt. Scorsese is as well, but Scorsese is better. It's just that is the fact. Like, Scorsese's quality, and one's quality is great. It doesn't matter what quantity is. But Ridley Scott he's still regarded as one of the greats, but he's not up there like Spielberg and Scorsese, because he is in their age generation,
I was going to say, you said exactly what I was going to say. It's he seems to be very much like quantity over quality, and like that's fair enough to be in. Like, some people are like that; they just want to be constantly making something, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. But to compare that is not fair. He might be making 3 movies, but the other 2 are Oscar movies.
But the thing is, Ridley Scott doesn't care what you think, because he knows, he believes that he thinks that he believes that he knows that his movies are great, and again, doesn't give a fuck what you think. He does what he wants. He's a grumpy old man who will say, "Get off my lawn, you darn kids," and instead of stopping there, he'll fire a stick at you or something like that. So he'll chase you off his garden. But he's earned that, I guess. Why not?
Yeah, but, like, that's the thing, is that he has earned that because of some of his older movies that are they're so intrinsic to pop culture as well. Like, he has such a great way. I'm just gonna pull up here now. Give me 2 seconds. Like, if we look at his filmography here, like the worlds that he's created. Okay, Blade Runner. Yeah. Now it's not as big in terms of like a lot of films that have come out, but it is one that is very, it's its own genre that it's created, almost like this neo-noir, futuristic but slightly held back kind of way. You take that, okay, Gladiator, probably one of the best historical epics ever, Alien, like the whole Alien franchise, like he started that. And then he has stuff like that, where, and then like other classics like Thelma and Louise, American Gangster, Black Hawk Down, but then he has other stuff there thrown into his mix of like Exodus, Gods and Kings, which is I know that movie. The Moses, Prince of Egypt live action, essentially.
A movie you can compare to this in Gladiator and The Last Duel.
Yeah, historical epic, and it's a biblical one. Then like The Counselor. I don't know if you've seen The Counselor, and it's shite. I wouldn't recommend it. And then a strange one here. I've not seen it, to be honest with you, but Body of Lies, which is so strange to have a Ridley Scott, Leonardo DiCaprio, Russell Crowe movie. Mid-2000s, kind of nearly at the height of Russell Crowe and Leonardo DiCaprio's careers, and no one ever talks about it. I've never heard anyone say like anything about that movie.
I think the mid-2000s is my least favorite era. Don't know why. It just is.
But it really does ebb and flow with him in terms of having these, like, and what I was trying to say there was, that when he has those movies like Alien and Blade Runner and Thelma and Louise and Gladiator and The Martian, he has then those movies that are held in such high regard and such high esteem that maybe when he does have a bit of a stinker or he gets any criticism, he's like, fuck you, I'm Ridley Scott, I did this, that and the other. What I say goes, I'm right, you're wrong. Yeah. And he just doesn't care what anyone else says. So maybe he has that. He is known for having a bit of an ego, and maybe that kind of would explain it, is that, just let him do what he wants. He's like, Napoleon is going to pull a profit, and I think that it'll, like that, like you said, it will become the go-to. I want to find out a bit more about Napoleon. I'd like to know, do I read a book on Napoleon or do I watch this movie?
Yeah.
or do I watch the eventual 4-hour cut? It will be a go-to like that. You know, like with Baz Luhrmann's Elvis, that feels like to me that is going to be in a few years. It'll be the Elvis movie.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
Because it is the version. So, look, I enjoyed Napoleon. I don't know if you've much else to say on it. I enjoyed it for its depiction of the era and seeing something that I've never seen before in revolutionary France. I couldn't think of any other versions of revolutionary France that I've seen off the top of my head.
Not that I've
Unity. That's
not that I've seen, but there is. I do like how he captured it on screen. There is some scenes though I didn't like how he did it though. So back to what you said about the guillotine. I was so looking forward to seeing that scene and seeing how it plays out. How much are you going to show us? Are you going to cut away to when the blade cuts off the head of Queen Antoinette, if that's how you pronounce it?
Yeah, Marie Antoinette, yeah.
I wanted that to grill me in, almost in a similar way how Scorsese did in a couple of the execution scenes in Killers of the Flower Moon. And I like that he didn't pull away. And the walking up, putting her head in the hole, struggling to close the clamps above her head so she doesn't move, and then just the camera work focusing on her face and just hearing her scream or breathe of fear of the fact that you are going to get your head cut off in front of this crowd who despise you and hate you.
Yeah.
And I understand what he was doing by throwing that Looney Tunes music in, but I understand he was trying to convey a sense of irony, maybe, and ridiculousness, but I didn't want that music played over when her head was getting cut off. I wanted to be a more than a tad more serious.
Absolutely.
You don't want this to scare me. Of this really happened. This is this is what people did here. But you're just playing a little French music, a musical irony type of humorous type of music. Really lolly-go-lucky type of music that I just didn't. Why did you pick that? Why couldn't you just make a good score to scare me, to give some fear into me, and then once the scene's done, cut to Napoleon just idly standing by in the crowd, almost as if he's assessing the situation and the environment he's in, which was a great cut to before the title comes up. But I liked how he shot it. I didn't like how he did it in post, let's say. But everything else he did in post in terms of the battles and the violence, yeah, good, liked it. But you know where I stand in the story or lack thereof, in my opinion. But yeah, I
think that's a fair criticism to have. Absolutely. Like, what is a movie without its story? So that's, even though I enjoyed it and you were disappointed by it, I think that from both of our perspectives, we see why the other one has the opinion that they have.
Exactly. That's what we need. That's exactly what we need from me and you to me. But yeah, I didn't know Napoleon was exiled twice. I knew he didn't die in battle. I knew he was exiled in the end. I just didn't realize he was exiled twice. And in fact, when he was exiled the first time, I was thinking, the movie's nearly over then, because he was exiled the first time. But then this doesn't feel like a climax of the movie, which I also just drop in the scene of when he's just going to be exiled now. Why? Where's the context to lead up to that? I just didn't feel it, in my opinion. But we're not going to get into that because we're done now. I am looking forward to Gladiator 2, kinda. I wish Barry Keoghan did not drop out.
Yeah,
I wanted Paul Mescal, Irish kid from Kildare, and Barry Keoghan, Irish kid from Dublin, to square off, but not meant to be, so it's not going to be in my top 10 list for next year, I'll tell you that. But any other final thoughts?
No, I think it's all wrapped up pretty well there. I'd still recommend seeing it, whether it be I'd say see it if you are interested in the big historical battles. I mean, we've obviously spoiled it now. We don't say the spoiler warning anymore. I'd see it in the cinema, but I think I would go back and watch the 4-hour cut later. Just to see.
I might do it one time, sometime, whenever it's released, at some point in my life, maybe.
Yeah, like it's not one that I'm rushing to.
Yeah, but yeah, that'll be. We'll see how that goes. Before we close this evening's, whatever the listener is in their time of day episode, with a recommendation.
I do. I have my recommendation this week is Doctor Who. Doctor Who is back. It's the 60th anniversary, and there are 3 specials being aired right now. So, as of recording this, the 28th of November, there was a special last Saturday, so the 25th. So we're getting 2 more on the 2nd and the 9th. David Tennant is back as the Doctor, and this is going to be leading directly into the next era of Doctor Who, with Ncuti Gatwa starring as the next Doctor. So we'll be getting 2 more episodes, then we'll be off for a bit and getting a Christmas special with Ncuti, and then we'll be into the whole new era of Doctor Who. So I love Doctor Who. It's back. I'm just really enjoyed the most recent episode, and so I'd recommend that.
Okay, interesting. I'll recommend people start to watch the start of season 5 of Fargo. Have you seen the show Fargo?
I've not. I've seen the film, but not any of the show.
Yeah, even though the Coen brothers say, the show is great, but we look at it as separate from our movie. Fargo has now season 5 coming out. Each season is an anthology of a different era, following different characters played by different characters. It is connected with loose characters crossing over, whether they're played by different actors or not, but they're all in the same vein of a story of crime and lies and deceit and weirdness. And this season I've watched now 2 episodes. Episode 3 will have been released in the time of the release of this episode, and this season stars John Hamm as sheriff who is the law and above the law, and a real good definition of the male patriarchy, to say the least.
Okay.
And Juno Temple was in it as a woman who's capable of handling herself when she doesn't look like she could, and Jennifer Jason Leigh and Joe Keery from Stranger Things is in it as well. And
I like all 4 of those people. Okay.
And this season started off with a similar storyline of the Fargo movie, with its own little spin and twist on it, and therefore taken off in its own direction. So it's not really copying the movie, but it's just nice to see that finally a comparison to the movie, whereas none of the show seasons did before. They're all focused on their own environments, their own narratives. So yeah, Fargo, it's good. It's a show that I think is going to keep on going for a while. Noah Hawley, who is directing this season and who is in the middle of doing he's doing the Alien TV show, who by the way casted Raylan Givens, Timothy Oliphant in the movie as an android, which I could not have been more excited to hear that, but that's a topic to discuss another day. So yeah, Fargo, season 5. Go watch it. Minnesota nice. That's all I have to say.
That's all. Okay, awesome. I think that brings an end to the episode. So
yeah, well, at least it wasn't as long as the movie.
Yeah. Big thank you to all of the listeners for listening to this one. We always appreciate it.
Yeah.
We'd also appreciate if you could give us 5 stars on your podcasting platform of choice.
It gives it gives us everything. Costing you nothing.
Yeah. We appreciate it.
We promote ourselves on Instagram primarily, and we are on Instagram at Talking Pictures Pod 1. And we always post our email there, so if you ever have a question or a topic to discuss, please send us in. If we're doing anything wrong that you want us to fix, send us in and we'll choose then and there whether to ignore you.
No one's emailed in to do anything wrong just yet, so we must be doing everything right.
Yeah, man. Hey, you're great.
Yeah, thanks, man. Hey, you know what? You're great.
Shucks. Thanks. All right, David. I'll see you next week on this podcast. Oh, I have to play the music.